So right now you can see my body as a demon and a giant tree, and all those characters are driven by the motions I make with my human body. So for the metaverse, it's important that you are perceived to be there physically in that virtual environment. So with your hands, with your full body, you need to be represented in a way that feels natural to you, but also natural to the people that are observing you in the metaverse. So when you dive into a virtual world, you can be anything you want in those worlds.
A global technological revolution is underway.
We think in the next 10 years, you'll see more innovation than we've seen in the past 50.
Driven by passionate, dedicated individuals intent on shaping a new world.
I want to create something new. I want to create something that gives me the sense of creating new life. This is why I'm here.
A greener world.
This is the last call to action, that we have to develop the solutions that are protecting our planet.
A better world.
I have a family, and when I think about the life I want them to have and their children to have, I want them to experience the world where they can travel and live without worry, and that gets me up and going every day.
Together, they are pushing engineering to its limits.
Human creativity is the most tremendous power, and if you set a target, things that you never thought possible become possible.
Creating extraordinary machines that can help the planet and humankind in the future. Humans have always been driven to explore new frontiers. Throughout history, adventurers have discovered new lands, crossed vast deserts, and scaled great peaks. But soon we may all be able to explore the newest frontier of all. The Metaverse. A web of interconnected virtual worlds.
It's really a new computing paradigm that uses the internet to create these spaces that you can enter. The metaverse is so much more than what we've had before with these little glowing rectangles, really. It's our bodies essentially entering the internet, which is much more natural.
I'm talking to you from within the metaverse. I am right now fully immersed. For me, it's indistinguishable from real life.
Catherine Allen and Artur Saichov have both spent years creating immersive virtual worlds and experiences that could one day form part of the metaverse. They know better than most what potential it has to transform the way people socialize, work, and learn.
Ultimately, what the metaverse is a collection of the opportunities to simulate experience. So, for instance, you might learn how to rock climb in the metaverse. You might go and have a class with your school. It's a place for living, for spending time in.
You can be an architect and you can build things for other people. You can be a musician, you can be an artist, you can create this avatar, and then if someone likes it, they will buy it and you will earn money.
You'll be able to enter the metaverse and meet people from all over the world by simply using your phone, games console, or laptop. Or better still, with a virtual reality headset.
Virtual reality just tricks your brain into believing that you are inside this world. I am not standing in the office right now. I'm actually standing in this beautiful environment and looking at the sunset, and it's just in a beautiful setting.
Parts of this digital parallel universe are already hugely popular, with hundreds of millions regularly hanging out with friends in virtual worlds. But most experts agree that those worlds have not yet come together to form a unified, fully fledged metaverse.
I think of them as these kind of like islands in a world, but there's often not anything to connect these islands to each other. What we're starting to see, though, is them sharing things like currency or avatars, and that feels like the really early stage of the metaverse.
Many challenges remain. how to create convincing digital worlds and virtual people, how to interact meaningfully with others, and how to feel fully immersed.
Everything you expect to happen in real life and in VR, which doesn't happen, breaks your immersion. And you want to minimize the immersion breakers as much as possible to fully trick the brain into believing that you are in a virtual environment.
Yet an audacious band of visionaries and engineers are determined to find ways to make the metaverse a reality. A leading contender aiming to build the infrastructure of the metaverse is Roblox. A sprawling virtual universe of user-created worlds that you can log into simultaneously with your friends or make new friends there. David Baszucki is one of the co-founders.
We had this vision that there was a new category of human co-experience. And when we saw this void for technology that actually allows people to do stuff together, this idea of a 3D immersive space where people can learn together, they can play together, they can work together. Platforms like Roblox allow people to connect deeply and learn about each other. It's really the vision of connecting everyone around the world.
To achieve this vision, the team at Roblox face a unique challenge: to develop a set of tools that's simple enough for almost anyone to build experiences for their friends, but also sophisticated enough to simulate compelling 3D worlds for millions of users simultaneously in real time.
Most of the problems that we're looking at on a daily basis, we're the first ones to be solving them. And we're solving them at massive scale, which adds an extra dimension to the problem. There is no one to copy. We're first. We're ahead of the curve. Just because somebody hasn't done it before doesn't mean it can't be done. Or just because it's hard doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it.
While Roblox builds the powerful tools, what makes the platform really unique is that every single virtual world and experience is created by its users. That community is on a mission to transform Roblox from simply a collection of video games into a proto-metaverse. Two of those involved in that transformation are British Roblox devotees Simon Burgess and Max Entwistle. They first met each other online while logged onto the platform.
We'd go and play games together and do what friends do together in the real world, just virtually. That's what's great about, the virtual world, is you can replicate, what's going on in the real world and then sort of grow your friendship through that.
Max and Simon soon went from playing on Roblox to creating new experiences themselves.
I sent Max these models. He would then add the functionality to the models that I'd made, and he basically brought my models to life and brought my imagination to life.
They now work full-time making virtual worlds for other users to explore. But before anyone can enter these worlds, they must first make their own avatar.
Your avatar is kind of like your digital self, in a way, that you can use within this digital, metaverse. And you can customize your avatar however you like. Let's say that I give him some shades, for example. It would cost about 50 cents. Let's say you wanted to put some wings on your avatar. I really like these ones. So I'm going to purchase them for about $1. And now, when I go back to my avatar, you can see that he now has some cool shades on and some wings, very fancy wings. So this is my avatar. The hat is one of the most iconic hats on Roblox. Now it fetches a value of about 2 million Robux, which is equivalent to about $7,000 now. This is actually what Roblox avatars will look like in the future. So you can see that his face is actually animated. You'll actually be able to have a webcam, and the webcam will actually be able to track your facial movements, and your expressions will show up on the avatar's faces.
Once you're happy with your avatar, you choose which virtual world to enter, whether to play a game or just explore. There are currently 27 million to choose from, all made by the community. Max is building a new world from scratch.
Well, I can select whether I want sand dunes, canyons, like an Arctic landscape. And if I click the generate button, So now that the terrain is generated, you can see this huge landscape we have here with mountains of snow on top. And using something called the toolbox, we can search through things that other people have made. So here, for example, I can insert a tree house. So around that, maybe we want to insert some trees. And then before you know it, you're on your way to creating a very basic experience on Roblox. And it's as easy as that. Roblox Studio also supports programming. So for example, if you wanted to create a door, then I can insert one very simple line of code, which means it will be invisible so the user can enter the door, and then we can close the door behind them. As you can see, my avatar is in this virtual world now that I've just created. So if I was to open the door and when I touch it, you see the door becomes invisible and then it's back closed again. So the user now has a functional door in, as easy as 30 seconds.
In 2017, Max and Simon made a game on Roblox called Sharkbite that's now been played over 1 billion times. They make money when players upgrade their boat or buy a Sharkbite-themed hat for their avatar. But more recently, they've been part of a movement to create virtual experiences that go beyond simply playing games. Instead, they simulate real-world scenarios.
You can work as the pizza place manager or roleplay as the pizza delivery boy, for example. There's also laundry simulator where somehow kids enjoy to do their laundry. And there's also Roblox High School where you can roleplay doing your homework and stuff. Anything that you can think of in real life, you can roleplay on Roblox in the Metaverse.
Simon and Max have created a camping simulation that lets you go backpacking without leaving your living room.
Backpacking is an immersive camping game where you can explore a huge island and set up your own campsite with friends.
And just relax together and chill out. Maybe, their real life is quite stressful and here they can meet friends and just play.
So right here you can see everyone's kind of parked up their little camper vans and people have already started setting up their campsites. So this is Max's campsite. You can see he's gone for the treehouse cabin.
So these are other people from around the world in our community. They all recognise me as the developer for the game. It's not as well known as Simon's because he's got his rare hat. I try and stay a bit more in the background. So at night time, you can do exactly the same as you can do in the day. For example, having a camp with your friends.
Simulated experiences like this now dominate the most popular genres on Roblox, with billions of hits every year. This is what the Metaverse will look like.
They can socialise with each other, make new friends. Max is here, he's just roasted his marshmallow.
Roblox have plans to make their avatars and virtual worlds more and more lifelike and realistic, a trend throughout the industry. For some, the ultimate goal is to become indistinguishable from real life.
There's something about the real world, which is, of course, really, really special. Through years and years and years of evolution, we have become attuned to it, It makes much more sense when it feels like real life.
All those small things like reflections, the wind, the depth, the colors and the shadows, they trick your brain to believe that what you see is real. And it makes it not only more beautiful, but it's also more realistic.
But building realistic virtual objects from scratch can be difficult and extremely time-consuming. Creating entire digital worlds that are as convincing as the real world would take an eternity.
There's so much about our physical world which is imperfect. And it's often that imperfection also that creates beauty. So I think that's the real challenge. That's something I think we'll really need to conquer to finesse that sense of awe and wonder that we get in the real world. That's something I think that for the Metaverse is a real challenge.
But now, a company called Quixel are developing a new way to create virtual objects with all the beautiful imperfections of real life. They're sending teams to some of the planet's most astonishing landscapes and iconic structures. They want to give all digital designers the tools to easily and quickly create imaginary worlds as convincing, detailed, and varied as these real locations. From Japanese temples to the volcanoes of Iceland.
The vision was ultimately to simplify the creation of photorealistic worlds, to the extent that anyone should be able to create a fully photorealistic immersive digital world.
10 years ago, their CEO, Teddy Bergsman, was determined to find a way to speed up the creation of 3D objects.
Those creative processes were highly manual. You would model things by hand, you would paint things by hand, and it takes months of work to even produce a single asset. Even objects that existed in the real world were being done completely by hand. And I figured, let's develop a technology that allows us to take real-world objects into the digital world automatically.
His plan, with co-founder Waka Hazim, was to scan actual objects and then use the data to build 3D digital clones.
So we spent the first few years of Quixel's journey in Pakistan creating these technologies that would ultimately allow us to automate the digitization of the real world. And so we went all over Pakistan to scan just anything we could find that was interesting. But it was a fairly heavy endeavor, and it required a lot of people to lug around.
The scanner could turn real-world objects into virtual ones, but it was still time-consuming. Teddy and Waka wanted to create a vast digital 3D library with every conceivable type of landscape and objects. But with this technology, it would take too long.
So to simplify world creation, we needed to create a portable scanning technology that allowed us to take any object and with the press of a button, have it be automatically scanned and automatically processed and published into this library. So in the following years, we're on a path to make that technology smaller and smaller and smaller and more portable and eventually handheld.
Today, scan artist Niklas Bielman is using Quixel's latest scanner to create a realistic 3D model of a lifesaver for the digital library.
I found an asset with great textures, and the base kit we're using here it's basically a camera with two strong headlights to kill out all the ambient light and overpower some of the sunlight coming into the shot.
Reflections of smooth or shiny surfaces can stop the scanner from picking up some of the finer details. So a special filter blocks the reflected light, which means every scratch and dent can be captured. Meanwhile, a laser measures the correct distance from the object.
After that, it's mainly taking pictures with a nice overlap between them. So the process later on will stitch it together and make a 3D mesh out of it. And it will be an exact 3D replica of this one.
The lifesaver is now in the metaverse with all its imperfections. Armed with this precision technology, Quixel now sends teams all over the world to scan every type of landscape.
So our mission is to scan the entire world, and that is a big endeavor. And we have to ensure that we have an accurate representation of all of the world's biomes and ecoregions.
In 2021, they sent a team to the Moab Desert in Utah.
One of the many challenges in a location like Moab is that it's incredibly sunny. And what that generally means is we have to crank up the flashes to 11 in order for them to overpower the sun. And this is a problem because that quickly drains the life of our batteries. And we only have so many batteries with us on this remote location. One very simple solution to be able to fit more scans into a trip is to simply set up a tent that casts a shade over the subject that we want to scan. Because then we can lower the intensity of the flashes so that they will essentially last longer.
Scanning a single rock can take hundreds of photos, which is back-breaking work. And the team must scan thousands.
To an artist, building an environment, variety is key. In order for us to achieve true photorealism, we have to have so much variety in the environments that we create. And so we'd rather scan too many subjects than too few.
How hard of work is this?
It's harder than it looks.
But to scan the large rock formations that the desert is famous for, they've developed another method.
With a drone, we're able to scan entire mountain ranges, huge rock formations. And previously, we actually did scan mountains by hand. We climbed those mountains, but it was a very dangerous task. And so we were very lucky that there are drones today that can help us.
Quixel now have the world's largest and fastest growing library of scanned objects. Yet Teddy is still not satisfied that this technology can ever capture the countless variety of objects, buildings, and landscapes from around the world. So he's developing a new approach.
So currently we're using all of this really advanced hardware, and we have teams of hundreds of people all over the world scanning. But this is really not enough to even scan the entire world. In fact, in order for us to achieve that goal, everyone needs to be able to scan the world. And we can't build hardware and ship it all over the world. So what we're doing is we're turning all of that know-how into a phone application that literally anyone can use. We can see our little llama here, and I'll just take a few basic angles, just trying to cover as much of the 360 view of this specific object as possible. And now what's happening is all these images are being instantly sent to the cloud, and now the app is actually guiding me where to take the next picture, because it's calculated the rough geometry of this subject. Right now, I'm here scanning this toy, but you could be out scanning this incredibly alien-looking rock, and we would all be contributing to the greater goal of capturing the world. And that is fundamentally important in order for us to be able to create the metaverse. It's not just corporations, it's everyone. Everyone contributes to the creation of the metaverse. And for me personally, I have a bunch of toys that I had as a kid. So what I'm doing is I'm digitizing them with this app. And now in the future, my kids will be able to play with those toys, but inside of the metaverse.
In 2019, Teddy set out to demonstrate what his library was capable of. So he used the scans from Iceland to create a convincing virtual futuristic planet.
For the first time, people could see proof that a very small team, leveraging not only real-time technology, but also photorealistic assets, are able to produce such a high-quality experience in such a short amount of time.
Teddy's team built the virtual world with powerful software that's normally used to create video games, called Unreal Engine, made by Epic Games, the company behind Fortnite. The two companies have now joined forces, so anyone can use Quixel's vast library of scans with Epic's powerful tools to build 3D worlds. The virtual landscapes are so detailed and convincing that they're even being used to revolutionize filmmaking. Rather than the conventional method of using a green screen to add computer graphics afterwards, directors can film against an LED wall that changes the background in real time as the camera moves.
Now, you're at that tipping point where people are realizing this is the way things are inevitably going to go. The flexibility that it gives you is enormous.
Alistair Thompson runs the Epic Games Innovation Lab in London. As well as working with filmmakers, they want their technology to be used to create a realistic, interactive metaverse.
You're going to see this wonderful merger, I think, of people who are used to making things and developing interactive experiences. You're going to see amazing music video directors and people who design cars or build houses or whatever. They can take their knowledge, their expertise in creating things, but they can start to use a game engine, and these things all start to merge, and they create this new version of the internet, which is essentially this expanded 3D world.
These tools allow designers to create a vast range of convincing digital objects and landscapes. But Sally Ann Houghton from the Innovation Lab knows how important it is to populate the metaverse.
We're really good at creating virtual spaces. We're really good at landscapes and buildings and cars. We can make them photoreal. But unless people inhabit those environments, it's just an empty digital space. It's not a living, breathing metaverse. And so avatars, digital humans or metahumans, whatever you want to call them, are a fundamental step towards the metaverse.
But digital people are hard to get right, as our brains are highly attuned to recognizing faces and body movement. So Epic Games have built a tool that they hope will finally make convincing avatars. It's called MetaHuman, and it merges 3D scans of real faces to produce entirely new digital people.
The process of making digital humans has historically taken a very long time and needed incredibly skilled artists to do it. What MetaHuman Creator allows for is almost anyone to pick up the piece of software and create very quickly, very sophisticated, unique digital characters that look incredibly human, that have very, very high fidelity features, and that move in a very natural way.
Anyone with a computer can now create vast, detailed 3D worlds and convincing AI-controlled humans to inhabit them. But although it's possible to access the metaverse through a two-dimensional screen, the sense of exploring these worlds and interacting with others is limited.
When you are looking at the monitor and you are looking inside the virtual world, it's like you're an outsider looking through the window into something. You don't feel the connection to the world. You don't feel the connection to your avatar. It's not that fun.
For years, virtual reality headsets have provided an immersive portal into computer-generated worlds.
These headsets can feel like magic. And I guess in a way they are magic because they're an illusion. It tricks our brain, it tricks our nervous system, and it temporarily overrides some of our senses of being present in a physical space with the virtual space.
Yet immersive experiences with a VR headset also have their limits. They're perfect for admiring a beautiful sunset in the metaverse, but if you want to do anything that involves your body, the illusion starts to break down.
A headset alone can still give us a sense of presence, being in a space, but the problem is you can feel a bit like a floating head without anything else. Often when people first go into virtual reality, they look down and they expect to see legs, they expect to see hands, and it's not there, and that feels really strange.
Martin Witterveen is one of the founders of Dutch company Manus. When they started 8 years ago, they were determined to make VR experiences even more immersive and interactive.
We figured, well, there's such a more enriched way that you could interact with those virtual worlds if you would use your hands.
Martin's team set out to build virtual reality gloves that can bring your hands into the metaverse. It would prove to be a far harder challenge than they ever imagined. First, they needed to show that the concept could work.
We made a first prototype where everything was just bare electronics. So you would see the flex sensors and we put it all onto a glove and just glued it on there with hot glue and just to put it together as quickly as possible. So you would just see the hand. And then as you would move your hand, you would see that representation on that computer screen. To me, that was a great feeling of being able to play around with and seeing that mirrored back to you.
But capturing the hand's movements accurately turned out to be extremely difficult.
So you have a lot of rotational movement, lots of degrees of freedom. There's like 27 degrees of freedom just in the hand alone, which is the same as in the whole human body. So having that condensed to the scale of a hand is a very complex task to make that all work. So that's a big challenge.
Many sensors they tried were uncomfortable or unreliable. But eventually, they settled on a combination.
So in our product, we use two types of sensors. So one is the flex sensor, which is a resistance-based sensor. So that when you bend it, you measure the resistance value. And the further you bend it, the higher the resistance value. So the flex sensor will lay on the hand in such a fashion. And there are two segments on this sensor. So we can distinguish between the knuckle being bent and the first joint being bent. Then on top of that is a sensor that has the same orientation sensors that you, for instance, would find in a mobile phone to give you the rotation of your phone.
With these sensors, your virtual hands can track your real hand movements almost perfectly. But while Manus were working on their gloves, a new VR headset hit the market that could capture the position of your hands using an inbuilt camera. In a stroke, it seemed like VR gloves were obsolete.
Of course, we got scared of it. It was like, okay, they can already bring this with just optical tracking, and there's no intrusive need to put on gloves. But then we sat down and processed it. What are the limitations there?
They realized that in some situations, a camera can't track both hands, causing them to disappear. Unlike a headset, the VR gloves work in all positions.
Having your hands, they are the most important tool that you have in your normal world. You can just put your hands together, and through the proprioception, you know where your hands are supposed to be. And seeing them in exactly that spot in virtual space makes the whole experience much more believable. If you would have this in your living room and a friend who's at the other side of the earth also has this entire setup running, we could have interactions and you could use your hands in a fluid manner to communicate, to point at things, to wave at each other, shake each other's hands, without having to have a second thought about how to interact with that virtual world.
Once hands had been successfully brought into the metaverse, Manus turned their attention to the rest of the body. Motion capture has been used for decades by filmmakers and game designers. But these suits, which track every joint on the body, are much too expensive and complex for most people.
To bring consumers into the metaverse, you want something that people can set up really easily into their living room so they can easily jump into their virtual environments.
Manus have designed a system with just 6 trackers worn on the body and 4 base stations that send out laser signals.
And inside these trackers are photodiodes that take up the laser signal, and then it sends that information to the PC to be able to be used to build up the human body as we are doing it here.
These trackers directly detect where 6 parts of the body are. Then computer algorithms calculate where the other body parts must be based on how our skeletons are connected.
With your body being tracked, you can transform into any sort of avatar. So right now you can see my body as a demon and a giant tree and a werewolf, and all those characters are driven by the motions I make with my human body. So for the metaverse, it's important that you are perceived to be there physically in that virtual environment. So with your hands, with your full body, you need to be represented in a way that feels natural to you, but also natural to the people that are observing you in the metaverse.
Seeing an avatar follow your real movements can trick your brain into believing it's your body. But even a headset with tracking technology doesn't allow you to feel anything in the metaverse.
If you just have the sight and the sound, yes, that's 2 of our 5 senses. There is lots that you can do, but there's also lots that you can't do. If you're hugging a relative that you haven't seen for a long time, feeling that hug could make such a difference, especially if you're lonely.
A company in Belarus called Tesla Suit want to bring the sense of touch to the metaverse. Inventor Sergey Kurz had the idea of making a suit while working with immersive technology.
The idea was born 10 years ago when I worked at Interactive Cinema, and then we created an idea of Tesla Suit, and we wanted to bring a VR experience to the mass market.
Sergey joined forces with co-founders Sergey Nosov and Dmitry Mikhalchuk to invent a new kind of smart clothes. They aimed to embed in the fabric a technology called haptics.
So haptics is ability to feel things or touch things. A person inside virtual augmented reality can see things, can hear things, and with haptics, it can feel things. So you got all this sort of spectrum of senses completed. So a person wearing a suit and entering virtual reality We'll have a deeper immersion overall because of the tactile sensations that wearer would be receiving by interacting with virtual objects.
For years, games console controllers have used vibrational haptics to add another dimension to the experience. But Tesla Suit weren't satisfied with this approach.
That vibrational sensation, it's kind of limited in its form generally. So you can play with amount of time it vibrates, maybe strength of vibration, but that's about it. It always feels like it's vibrating rather than anything else. And so effects of that are quite limited for virtual reality.
Instead, their team set out to pioneer an innovative new system that stimulates the nerves directly with electricity. They knew it could create a far wider range of sensations, but it also posed a huge challenge. How to make an electrical connection with the skin that was safe and practical.
An early prototype, we used a wet t-shirt to make a good skin contact, but user experience when you're wearing a t-shirt, not really great.
Despite the setback, the team refused to give up. And after another 4 years of trial and error, they hit on a now patented system that only needs a small amount of moisture to work.
Right now we're using dry electrodes and using human sweat to create good conductivity between electrodes and human body. And you don't need to put on a wet t-shirt right now.
Now the team are testing the latest Tesla Suit. It has electrodes all over the body, 32 on each arm, the same number on each leg, and the same again on the torso. But as well as providing the whole body experience, the technology in a Tesla Suit can simulate many different sensations, from a light touch to heavy impacts.
We can alter the various settings, such as power, frequency. Also, we can influence the wave shape, which changes the perception of how the electricity feels as a touch, which is very important. Transcutaneous neural stimulation, or TENS, we use to simulate very light type of sensation. For example, here we have the raindrops simulation, so immediately you can see the reaction, and it's creating very light, ticklish kind of type of touch and impact.
High-frequency electricity stimulates the nerves in the skin that we use to sense gentle pressure. But the suit can create a very different response by lowering the frequency, called electromuscular stimulation, or EMS.
EMS penetrates the tissue of the muscle, and it is quite capable of contracting it. So, for example, if I was to launch the ball into the person, you can see immediately, without seeing where I've launched it, he felt it.
Stimulating the muscles directly means Tesla Suit can recreate the powerful sensation of a football tackle or the recoil from a gun. The current price tag of $10,000 per suit puts it out of most consumers' reach for now. So the team are focusing on training simulations, such as learning how to safely shut down a malfunctioning oil platform.
It was hugely successful. The skill level increased every time they were doing the training simulation.
By stimulating our nerves and muscles directly, Tesla Suit aims to make all physical interactions in the metaverse feel viscerally real. With technology like this, the boundaries between what's real and what's virtual could begin to blur.
In the near future, we'll have all the senses mimicked in VR, and I think it will happen within the next 10 years. And it will mean a lot for humanity. It will create a possibility for humans to interact naturally and create experiences which will mimic real life, and it will enhance it so that you will be able to live through things you are not able to live through in real life.
But even with all our senses plugged into the metaverse, there's one way that the illusion can still be easily broken: the way we move around.
Accessing the metaverse via virtual reality in your living room can feel really cool, but if you tried to wander around, for instance, a forest, and you wanted to free roam, you would end up bumping into your wall. Oh my God. It might not be particularly pleasant. So that's certainly a challenge that technology around virtual reality has to address.
company in California called Infinidec are trying to solve the problem. Their founder, George Berger, has been an inventor all his life. Most famously, he reinvented the baseball bat using completely new materials.
I created a brand new type of bat for Louisville Slugger, the entire composite line of bats, and the way to make them and the machinery, and I created the best bat in the world. But the problem is, I don't really like baseball very much, and so while I was designing all the new bats, I had to try to find other stuff to design just to keep sane. One day, I was home watching my son play Call of Duty, and I asked him about it, and he said there's like 4 million people playing at that time. And I said, wow, that's a lot of sofa spuds there. And so I got thinking, what if I made a way for the kids to actually be in the game? They would be moving around, running, getting exercise, you know, having fun. And to do that, they would need a treadmill or something. So that treadmill is what I decided to build.
George's plan was to make an omnidirectional treadmill, which meant it would be able to move the track not only forwards, but left and right too. So whichever direction you went, the treadmill could keep you in the same spot. A fiendishly difficult task. He spent months researching the technology before the idea for a design came to him.
Usually when I invent anything, it's an epiphany. It happens instantly. I have all the information I need, and it's kind of swirling around in my head for a while. One time it just came to me, and it's like, that's it. That will work.
His design had dozens of thin belts forming the track of a treadmill, which can move forwards or backwards. Meanwhile, the thin belts themselves also behave like a set of mini treadmills that can move sideways. Combining the two motions at different speeds means you can move in any direction. Working in his spare time, it took George 3 years to build a prototype.
The first version I built mainly in my garage, and it was a beast. It weighed about 3,000 pounds, and I never got it to work for more than 1 minute. This version is a piece of junk. I cut it apart and threw it in the trash.
His first machine was too unstable, but George relished the challenge of finding a solution and was soon building a second. It worked the same way, with one vital difference. All the thin belts were joined together, end to end, to form a single long loop, so they would always move at the same speed and stay synchronized.
That one change changed everything, and that was to have one belt for the entire treadmill. It looks like there's many belts on it. There's only one. It's about 400 feet long. And it has a helical path that takes it from one bridge to the other. It can't help but work. It just solved problem after problem after problem.
George went full-time and started his company. But to use the treadmill in the metaverse, he faced another challenge.
After we mechanically got the treadmill working, we had to find a way of controlling it, which means when a person walks this way, the treads have to go the opposite way. That turned out to be quite a feat. It turns out that human walking is very complicated, and if you don't get it right, the person's going to be thinking about his feet, and the immersion's going to break. The first way I tried to get tracking to work was to put a pole behind the person, so when you walk forward, the forward force lets the computer know that it needs to make the treadmill go backwards. And it did work. However, when you do that, you're always dragging a weight behind you, and that's not normal walking. So I abandoned that for that reason.
Today, mechanical engineer Griffin Brunner is testing the latest control system, which involves a wireless tracker worn as a belt.
Let's start you in 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and walk.
Whenever the tracker moves away from the center, the computer speeds up the treadmill in the opposite direction to bring it back. In this simulation, users can explore iconic locations like Stonehenge in England from any country in the world.
Go ahead and turn to your left. So that's good. Yeah, go ahead and turn right there. Yeah. In general, I think I'm seeing good feedback.
However, when you do that, you're always dragging a weight behind you, and that's not normal walking. So I abandoned that for that reason.
Today, mechanical engineer Irving is testing the latest control system, which includes a wireless tracker as a belt. Whenever the tracker moves away from the center, the computer speeds up the treadmill in the opposite direction to bring it back. In this simulation, users can explore iconic locations like Stonehenge, England, any country in the world.
Feedback on this one.
Yeah, the walking feels totally fine.
Good. So we've seen major benefits from having the tracker because inherently the user now has complete freedom of motion. They're able to move where they want to move, get where they want to get to, and that means that we have a much more realistic walking motion for the user.
The new control system keeps the user in the center of the treadmill without restricting their natural movement. As well as allowing people to be more immersed and more active while in the metaverse, the Infinideck could also solve another well-known problem with virtual reality.
It's very common for people to get that sort of locomotion sickness in a VR experience, but we've yet to have anyone experience that from the treadmill, which has been a fantastic thing. We want everyone to have a way to walk into the metaverse. That's our goal.
The Infinideck provides one way to get users of the metaverse off their sofa. There's also yoga classes, rock climbing. The list is endless. Yet for the metaverse to be a success, it must not only be good for our bodies, but also for the planet. One of the concerns is that the computer servers needed to run it will consume a huge amount of power. In particular, the digital currencies needed for the economy of the metaverse.
When you're in a virtual reality space, say you wanted to buy something in that space, maybe a new outfit for your avatar or some art to put in your home environment, then you want to pay for it. So you use, often, a cryptocurrency that uses a lot of energy, a lot of server power. So we have to think about the environmental impact of generating that cryptocurrency. And that can be something that really could be make or break, for the environment if this is going to be our main way of paying for things in the future.
Bitcoin alone consumes more electricity than Argentina. Making sure virtual worlds don't damage the real world will need innovative new approaches. Software engineers are searching for ways to reduce the power consumption of cryptocurrencies, while others are exploring how the metaverse could cut emissions in different ways. Evelyn Mora is the founder of Helsinki Fashion Week. And she knows the industry faces a huge challenge to reduce its carbon footprint.
Hundreds of thousands of people travel a few times a year to Paris, London, Milan, New York, just for fashion weeks.
Evelyn was determined to do things differently.
Every year with Helsinki Fashion Week, we aim to learn from the previous season and understand what can we do to become more and more sustainable. So in 2020, we were tackling challenges around environmental sustainability of the physical event structure. So we decided to actually replace our showrooms with interactive 3D rooms, and that turned into a complete 3D fashion week.
Evelyn's team moved her fashion week from Helsinki into the metaverse, which meant people could attend from all over the world without taking a single flight. And with no limits in the metaverse, the shows could be outrageously creative.
So lighting, colors, fabrics, locations are really important for designers. So when a designer sees their creation being in a particular environment, that really brings their full vision to life. And we had some really interesting setups. A lot of designers' dreams are to produce fashion shows in places like Louvre, which is really not that simple. So in the metaverse, they are able to do it.
But these digital shows also consumed a lot of server power as thousands of fashionistas logged on. So Evelyn commissioned a report to measure the environmental impact of someone attending in the metaverse compared to the physical show of the year before. The results were astounding.
We found out that actually an individual carbon footprint of one visitor was about 500 times less in the metaverse than in the physical Fashion Week. And Helsinki Fashion Week is known to be the most sustainable fashion week in the world. So if you imagine other Fashion Week, global ones, it's much greater.
And the fashion industry is only one of many that could move international events and meetings online, potentially preventing hundreds of millions of tons of carbon emissions. For the metaverse to be a force for good, there are still many things that need to be worked out.
I think there's a tendency to see the metaverse as something kind of sci-fi, something gimmicky, something a bit like even silly and frivolous. I think we really need to change that attitude and take this seriously in order to think about how we best regulate its future.
But as some of the largest corporations in the world battle it out to claim their stake, could the time have come to enter the metaverse?
I think that Metaverse will have a dramatically positive impact on humanity. And the reason for that is it will allow so many new people to create, to socialize, to experience things and to become a better human being. And in general, I think it will uplift the whole, humanity, because the information and the experiences will suddenly become more open to everyone. So I'm absolutely convinced that this is the game changer for humanity, and it will enhance their life. Not replace their real life, but enhance their real life.